Hi, everybody. So I'm here with my friend. You may know her from the PAC community, but we're here today to get to know her a little bit more. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the one, the only Bishop Porter. She's a seasoned production accountant with a ton of experience in the film industry. And we're lucky enough to now have her at Cast and Crew as our manager of production accountant relations. So we're here today to learn a little bit more about Bishop's journey from production accountant to her leadership role here today at Cast and Crew. So Bishop, hi, how are you?
Hi, Alex. What a
Good to
lovely
see you.
introduction. You had me blushing. I don't know if you can
Well-
see that or not.
I can't see it. It must be the ring light. But you're a personal friend, and I really admire you and all the good work that you do for our production accountant community here at Cast and
Thank
Crew
you.
and within the industry at large. So let's get right to it, shall we? I'm going to ask you a few
Okay.
questions, and you're going to
Sure.
give me a few answers about your
Okay.
career or professional journey. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. I'm in the hot seat.
You are. Hope it's not too hot. So, Bishop, give us a little bit of background on how did you get started in the production accounting industry?
Yeah. So I studied accounting in college, which is kind of rare and odd, I feel like, in this business. But I got a business degree and I majored in accounting. And then when I got done with school, I interned at the time, it was the big four CPA firms. And I interned there thinking I would get a taste of what it was like to be a CPA if that was the track I wanted to go on, and actually did the audit side of that program. And I was able to go to different businesses, see how different businesses were run, which was really interesting, and just understand kind of the basics of accounting. Like a lot of things, you take it from the textbook, but actually in real life application gave me more of a sense of that. But after that, I realized that that was not the right course for me. So I took a beat and got a job trying to take a minute and figure out what I was going to do with my life. I had this degree. I wasn't sure how I wanted to use it. That took a little while to figure that out. So in that process, actually, my college roommate, she was in the business. Her father had been in the business. So we had talked about, I knew a little bit about film from her, but like a lot of people, I knew film and TV from what was on the screen. I didn't really think about all the moving parts that are behind the screen and what it takes to produce something. And I learned a little bit from her about how that works. And she was living and working in New Orleans at the time. And she just said, there are so many opportunities here. It would be great, if you wanted to get your foot in the door, give it a try. And so at the time, actually, that was right. Hurricane Katrina had hit in 2005, and she happened to be there working. And all the productions that were working there at the time, of course, had to leave New Orleans because it was just not sustainable to stay there. So a lot of them ended up in Baton Rouge or in Shreveport, Louisiana, to finish filming. And she moved there to finish something she was working on. And I actually packed up my bags and moved to Shreveport to clerk on a little independent feature. It was called The Killing Room at the time. I don't know if it actually came out or what it came out as. Those things tend to change. But so I took a leap of faith and moved to Shreveport sight unseen and started working in the accounting department on this movie in my 20s, just giving it a chance.
It's like the courage you have, when you're sort of just starting out in your career, right? To just try stuff. And I think it's so relatable. It's like you get out of college and you think you're going to take one track, and then you get a little bit of actual professional experience and, realize, it's not really necessarily for me.
I think I was drawn more to being in the creative industry. I knew I had accounting in so many ways it's a practical skill, like a plumber, or you have a skill to apply to something, but being closer to the creative aspect of it was more interesting to me. As a kid, I was a dancer and a singer and involved in theater and loved the arts and all of that. So I had that natural curiosity and desire to be close to that part of it. So it kind of became a perfect marriage of those two things for me.
Awesome. Okay, so you kind of touched on a few of these, I would say a little bit, but when you think about previous maybe work experiences or even life experiences that have prepared you for your current role, what sort of comes to mind for you?
Well, I think the one thing I really learned working in production accounting, and then that's also a part of my role here at Cast and Crew, is just being able to work with a variety of people. It's different personalities, different backgrounds, different life experience. And the movie industry, film and television, all of that, it brings such a wide breadth of people and personalities. And I think that is the strength of it. It makes it very dynamic and interesting. You never meet the same person twice. You never find the same problem or situation twice. Everything's kind of constantly new and different. So, particularly my role now, I'm constantly meeting accountants from our financial controllers, production accountants on some really big tentpole projects to clerks that are just starting out in the business and
Mhm.
want to learn what this crazy film world is like. And so I really enjoy just getting to connect with different people and hear their stories and what got them into this business as well and why they're pursuing it.
It's so great. And I think, it makes so much sense when you think about this really is an industry that is creative, but it's creative in a way that is expressly collaborative, right? And
Yes.
so as part of that collaboration, you you have to be able to work with a number of different personality types, right? And you take it a step further to really have the awareness and understand that the diversity of personality types, if navigated in a constructed way, actually adds to the final product, be it a movie or a TV show or whatever the sort of the final kind of product is that you're working on at any given
Yeah.
time, or project, I should say.
Mhm.
Cool.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
What would you say is, like, based on your experience, the most important skill that you need to have to be successful in production accounting?
Well, I would probably go back to being able to work with different types of people. But beyond that, I think in the day-to-day process, it's really that multitasking and being able to prioritize your duties because there's always something that's going to pop up that's unexpected, you didn't really plan for. We plan all these different scenarios, particularly an accountant who maybe budgets a lot and, oh, we're going to compare this situation to that. You think you're planning two steps ahead always, but things inevitably come up that you couldn't have planned for. So being able to adapt, being able to prioritize, priority shift, being able to say, okay, what is my role in this? Because I'm contributing as a second assistant or a clerk or a
Mm.
financial controller. You're a critical part of that piece of the puzzle that has to make everything work. So I would say being able to adapt, multitask, and shift priorities as needed is so important. And then, we have our role that, let's say, we're trying to secure a location, something changed all of a sudden, it's raining. Now they've got to pivot to an indoor space. Maybe the shoot schedule's changing. Okay, what does that mean? Maybe the payment we needed for that location, we've got to accelerate that and get that approved and out the door by tonight. So we're ready to go for a 7 a.m. call tomorrow. So it's knowing your part, being able to put aside, okay, let me shift onto this, and doing all that with accuracy so that all the things can tee up for that to happen.
And you touched on this a little bit with regard to your interest, right? Like taking your skill set and applying it specifically in a more creative field. But can you elaborate a little bit more on the difference between accounting in this field of sort of like production versus accounting in a more kind of corporate setting or in a different industry, so to speak?
It is something, I mean, accounting, like I said, it's the underlying foundation of all businesses. But in this production accounting in our world, it's really cost accounting. We're just spending the money. We are the studio or the production company or whatever gives you that, not a blank check, but a sum to complete this project. And that's really what you're doing. So in some sense, you would say it's cost accounting because we're not going to see the studio or the production company isn't going to see the other side of that until the movie's released. And that could be a year out, 2 years out. It could go to a streamer. in 3 years, so the revenue side coming in, that's really not what the production itself is as responsible for. Now, that doesn't mean there are not some things you have to consider, but it's really more about calculating those costs, tracking those costs, staying within budget, and meeting those deadlines that are set forth for the corporation, whoever is producing the project. So I would say that's the big difference. As far as commonality, there's still deadlines. There's still reports that have to be run every week or every month. If I'm working on this little movie that's rolling up to a bigger company, they're still want to see that at the end of this week, what did our cost report look like? Because that's factoring into someone else who's doing another job somewhere else. So in that regard, they're still closing your books if you're paying taxes or there's some sort of financial reporting that has a strict deadline. Those types of things are still important and they still affect a production accountant.
What is an unexpected challenge that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, as far as a life challenge, I moved to LA for a new role with cast and crew in 2020 and, packed up my life. Like I said, I had been in Louisiana for many years and I got a new opportunity here in LA, packed up my car, drove out to LA. We're getting a theme, another time in my life where I was like, okay, time for a change, time to take a leap of faith. And I got to LA, that was January 2020. And then this thing called COVID hit in March of that year. So I had been in LA for, going on 8 weeks, I guess, when we shut down the office and went home for what we thought would be 2 weeks that turned into a month, which turned into, this big unknown. And so at the time, I was furloughed at the time with almost everyone. We were all in this holding period of not sure what was happening. I had to pivot and it was a challenge. We all were in that phase of unknown. I had a colleague that had reached out, was possibly going to go on another show, needed an assistant to go with her. And again, a leap of faith of, okay, that sounds good. I don't know if I could do it. Can I learn this new skill? Can I do this job? Like you have a lot of skills, but every show can be different. Every environment is different. Your colleagues. So that was challenging in and of itself, but it turned out to be such a wonderful experience, a huge growth experience for me. I learned so many things. I learned about payroll, which I had not done payroll before. I traveled some when everyone else was locked in their homes we were in a strict COVID bubble, mind you, but I still was able to get out a little bit. And it turned into about 18 months I stayed on one series for a few seasons. So it was really such a growing experience, challenging, but that's what's always on the other side.
It's often the challenges where you kind of learn the most, right? Mm-hmm. One more question for you here. What would you say is one of the most, if not the most, rewarding aspects of working as a production accountant?
I think for me, it's really the being part of the whole, kind of what we said, knowing that your role is important and critical to this whole thing happening. And I didn't really realize that until I'd been in the industry, I think, I don't know, maybe 6-8 months. And I went to see a movie with some friends and the movie was over and the credits were starting to roll. And I look around like, we're going to get up, right? And everyone was still seated because they were all film crew, colleagues, And I was like, wait, what? What's happening? And they said, oh, we stay for the credits. It's like, you stay for the credits to honor those that worked on that and to see these names roll because the movie's not over until you acknowledge all the people that it took to complete that project. And I think, again, going back to not knowing what we see on the screen and realizing what it takes behind. And then you go see a big feature that has a bunch of stunts and locations and action sequences and all that. And you look at all the people that are involved. It's rewarding and validating, but it feels good to know that you were part of something that all these people collectively had to get together to do to pull it off,
So rewarding. And,
yes.
To the point about this is such a collaborative endeavor, this industry.
And your crew, the hours can be demanding, the time away from your family, committed to a project, it's not your typical 9 to 5 job if you're a freelance accountant or crew member. So you really are become a close knit community. And that kind of adds to that feeling of collaboration and team effort.
Hey, Bishop, thank you. It's always such a pleasure to connect with you. So thank you so much again for your time and sharing your story, the ups and the downs and everything in between. Really, it's inspiring to me as well.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Likewise.